I fell for the bodyguard Dad hired for me. He said, "We're from different worlds, we're not good enough for you." So he went out with others, kissing passionately on the streets and hanging out in nightclubs. All because he was afraid I'd cling to him. When I found out, he casually wiped his lips and said, "See? I'm not as good as you think." Later, he went to great lengths to gain Dad's trust. He bankrupted our family and rose to become a new elite in Cloudville. He watched me fall into despair with no one to turn to. He smirked triumphantly, "Xiao Mo, now we can finally be together. Beg me. Beg me to help your dad secure investments." To revive the business my dad had worked so hard to build, I begged him. What greeted me was Shenwan's ruthless sneer, "Do you think begging is as easy as moving your lips? You have to crawl to me. I like people who take the initiative." In front of a room full of investors, Shenwan tore off my last shred of dignity, "You're nothing special. You're just like a dog." I woke up. I was reborn to the day he first entered our home. "Momo, come here. Dad wants to introduce you to someone. This is your new bodyguard, Shenwan. You're around the same age, so you can call him David." Shenwan? Hearing that name again, I froze for a moment, then looked up to meet the young man's piercing gaze. Seeing my father's happy expression, I forced myself to suppress the hatred in my heart and resolved to take things slowly. I never expected to return to the day Shenwan first entered our home. He was wearing ragged clothes, his fingers shyly tugging at his hem, looking quite disheveled. My father told him to greet me, "Shenwan, this is my daughter Xiao Mo. You can call her Momo or Sophia. Get to know each other." Shenwan softly replied, and stepped forward, extending his hand to shake mine, but I dodged him at the last moment. He looked confused, his eyes filled with confusion. "Sophia, don't you like me? Don't call me that." I interrupted him disdainfully, "I only have one David. I don't remember having another one. Dad was just being polite to you, and you took it seriously?" "No, I didn't," Shenwan hurried to explain, but I grew annoyed just looking at him. "Enough." I cut him off. "What you think has nothing to do with me. I'm not interested. Since Dad told you to be my bodyguard, just do your job." Dad didn't expect me to reject Shenwan so harshly, so he smiled and tried to smooth things over. "Well, Shenwan, I'm sorry. Momo isn't usually like this. Maybe she's just not used to having someone new in the house. Don't take it to heart. I'll talk to her about it later." Shenwan smiled and said, "Uncle, it's okay. I really like Sophia. I won't be angry with her." I felt a wave of nausea and suddenly remembered my past life. Shenwan wasn't this enthusiastic back then. Although Dad had kindly taken him in, he was always silent, as if there was an invisible barrier between him and everyone else. At first, I didn't like Shenwan either, but he hadn't done anything to offend me, he was just a bit quiet. Plus, Dad was busy with work and couldn't pick me up after school, so he didn't feel comfortable letting me go home alone. To reassure him, I agreed to let Shenwan be my bodyguard. I once asked Dad why he chose Shenwan to be my bodyguard. Since Shenwan looked pale and malnourished when he first came to our house, how could he possibly be a bodyguard? Dad said Shenwan was the son of his friend, whose parents had passed away. He felt sorry for him and decided to take him in. He said Shenwan's father was very skilled, and Shenwan had learned many self-defense techniques from him since he was young, so he could take care of me. Our relationship began to grow closer one evening when I got out of school early and was blocked by a group of thugs on the way home. They demanded money, and even after I gave it to them, they refused to let me go. Just when I was at my wit's end, Shenwan appeared. He fought with them and suffered severe injuries, spending a month in the hospital. Dad, to thank him, arranged for him to attend prep school with me. It was there that Shenwan, through my connection, established ties with the children of influential families, laying the foundation for his future success in Cloudville. One evening, Dad called me into his study to discuss Shenwan's schooling. "Momo, what do you think about Shenwan attending the same school as you?" I replied decisively, "I disagree. Dad, he's just a bodyguard. Providing him with food and shelter is already generous enough. Why would you want him to go to school with me?" Dad looked at me angrily, sounding a bit anxious. "Momo, don't be upset. I'm not trying to force you. I'll respect your opinion on anything you don't like, but what?" I asked him. Just like in my previous life, I couldn't understand why Dad would let Shenwan be my study companion, even though Shenwan didn't appreciate his kindness at first. His father once helped me. Dad hesitated. Before he died, he knelt down and begged me to take care of his son until he grew up. I agreed. I thought Dad was just feeling sorry for Shenwan, but I didn't know there was this connection. But if our family really owed Shenwan anything, it had already been repaid in the previous life. This time, I would never let Shenwan step into my circle, not even a single step. Any connections he claimed to have, I would sever them all. Seeing Dad's troubled expression, I couldn't tell him about the previous life, because it sounded absurd and there was no evidence. I had no choice but to back down, let him go to school, but only the most ordinary one. He can't go to the same prep school as me. With tuition fees of millions a year, what does Shenwan deserve? Even in the most ordinary school, there are still good things waiting for him. I'm not letting him enjoy a proper education there. I'll gradually reveal his true colors to Dad. Seeing that I had relented, Dad's eyebrows relaxed into a smile. Thank you, daughter. Dad will do whatever you say. How about I find you another companion? What about Lucas, the son of Uncle Chu? I heard he's also going to Imperial Academy. You two met when you were kids. You probably don't remember what he looks like. Lucas. I remember him. He was the only person who helped me after our family went bankrupt. He could have lived a carefree life, making a name for himself in Cloudville without relying on his family. But in the end, he died because of me. Everyone said that the young master of the Chu family was pampered too much as a child, unaware of the dangers of the outside world, and too proud to resort to underhanded means. Such a person's path in life would inevitably be blocked. Only I knew that Lucas could have been a master strategist in the business world, charming and witty. He could have lived life on his own terms, but because he had a little tail following him, that tail became his only concern. Everyone could manipulate him, and they did so effortlessly, every time. He was inherently good, unaware that human nature could be so cruel. Even after giving everything he had, he fell into Shenwan's trap and lost his life. He didn't manage to save me, but he destroyed himself in the process. I forced back the bitterness in my heart and smiled at Dad, saying, "All right, Dad, maybe we can visit Uncle Chu's place someday to catch up." Because of my opposition, Dad only allowed Shenwan to attend the most ordinary school. That school had the worst educational resources, the most ruthless people, and the worst children of criminals. And it was also where Shenwan feared to go the most, his uncle. Dad didn't know any of this because I was the one who found the school for Shenwan. Dad was too kind, and I didn't want him to worry about these things. So I kept brainwashing him, telling him that the school wasn't that bad, not as terrible as he imagined. After all, ordinary people went there too. I only found out in my previous life that Shenwan actually had an uncle who raised him before he started middle school. It was more like using Shenwan as a tool for making money. He made him go to school 1 day a week, work 4 days, and go hungry for 3 days. Shenwan probably never imagined his uncle was near that school, because I was the one who leaked the information. In the morning, Dad told Shenwan that after breakfast, he'd take him to buy some new clothes and then send him to school in the afternoon. Shenwan couldn't hide his excitement. "Thank you, Uncle. Can I finally go to school with Sophia?" Dad looked a bit awkward. "No, Uncle found you a school for Sophia. They say the teachers are good. You should go there." Upon hearing it wasn't the same school as mine, Shenwan grew angry, though it wasn't obvious. I noticed it anyway. He quickly put on a look of hurt, as if he were truly concerned for me. "Uncle, why can't I go to the same school as Sophia? Didn't you say you wanted me to protect her? What if something happens to her?" "Well..." Shenwan's tone was as if he were certain something bad would happen to me, even though Dad was also worried about me and had asked him to protect me. But in reality, it was mostly out of pity for him. He was alone and helpless, so I was looking for an excuse to help take care of him. Otherwise, Dad could have easily found a bodyguard who was more mature, steady, and tall than Shenwan. With Shenwan's current frail and weak appearance, it would take him a long time to build up the kind of physique needed to protect me. Shenwan noticed Dad's hesitation and immediately said, "Uncle, you don't trust Sophia either, do you? She's just as bad as me, right?" Xinhuan noticed Dad's hesitation and immediately said, "Uncle, you don't feel safe letting Sophia go home alone after school at 10 o'clock, do you?" Actually, I don't feel safe." Dad stroked his chin, and Xinhuan immediately lit up with a smile. "Don't worry, Uncle. I'll be there to protect Sophia." "No need." Dad interrupted Xinhuan. "I'll find someone else to look after Sophia. Don't worry about it. This is final." "Uncle, Xinhuan seemed to want to say something else, but seeing that Dad didn't want to discuss it further, he fell silent. After breakfast, Dad said he wanted to take Xinhuan out to buy some clothes, and to buy something nice. That way, no one would bully him at school. I naturally disagreed and volunteered to go with them. Before leaving, I pulled Dad aside and continued to persuade him. Xinhuan comes from a poor background. Buying too expensive clothes isn't suitable for him. It might hurt his self-esteem. Dad frowned slightly upon hearing this. Is that really okay? After all, he's the son of an old friend. I patted Dad on the chest and assured him, "Dad, trust me, you don't understand how young people think nowadays. I know. If you buy Xinhuan expensive things, he'll feel burdened, but he's too shy to say it out loud for fear of putting you in a difficult position. All right, I'll listen to you. Dad really doesn't understand how young people think nowadays. You've thought of everything. In my previous life, Dad had also bought Xinhuan a t-shirt worth tens of thousands of dollars and a pair of pants worth hundreds of thousands, yet he never received a single word of gratitude. When Xinhuan later changed his attitude toward Dad, Dad felt relieved for a long time, thinking that he had finally fulfilled his old friend's entrustment. Who could have imagined that Xinhuan was doing all this to gain his trust, leading our family into an irreversible disaster? After reaching an agreement with Dad, I took Xinhuan to the nearby mall alone. If it weren't for wanting to expose Xinhuan's true colors and ensure he never rises again, I wouldn't even consider buying him clothes. Standing next to him makes me feel sick. Yet Xinhuan is oblivious, following me closely and chattering non-stop. His tone betrayed his envy. "Sophia, can I wear clothes made of such good fabric too?" Dream on. I sneered inwardly. They're definitely carefully selected. Xinhuan looked excited. "Can I choose for myself?" "Of course you can," I nodded. As we passed a luxury store, Xinhuan had already entered the mall ahead of me. The salesperson, noticing his attire, looked at him with disdain. But when they saw me, an old customer standing a few meters behind him, they immediately became enthusiastic toward Xinhuan. "Handsome guy, take a look around. You can try anything on." To my surprise, Xinhuan didn't even bother to try anything on. He boldly told the salesperson, "These, and these too. Wrap them all up for me." After Xinhuan went into the mall to pick out clothes, I found a coffee shop and slowly savored my coffee. After binge-watching 3 hours of TV shows, I finally strolled toward the mall. On the way, I couldn't resist picking up a pair of stiff cotton linen pants for 9 yuan. By the time I reached the mall, I noticed that Xinhuan's feet were already surrounded by dozens of luxury brand shopping bags, filled with the clothes he had picked out, enough to change outfits every day. Seeing me, Xinhuan looked at me like I was his savior. "Sophia, they said I can't afford to shop at luxury stores, that they're looking down on me." I explained that you'd come to pay for me, but they didn't believe me. After saying that, she couldn't resist looking at the store clerk triumphantly. "Do you think I can afford it now?" The store clerk looked helpless. "But sir, you've made us all wait here for hours, and we haven't seen your family come." "But I'm here now, aren't I?" Xinhuan interrupted, then turned to me. "Sophia, come over here and pay for this. These people look down on me. Let them see what it means to be unable to afford something." Xinhuan acted as if it were his right, making it seem like I was his ATM machine. Well, in a past life, I was indeed a sucker. I put on a pitiful act, covering my face and pretending to cry, forcing myself to call Xinhuan David despite the nausea. "David, what they're saying is true. If you can't afford it, why shop at a luxury store? You know our family's circumstances. We can barely make ends meet. Luxury items are something we can only afford to look at once a year. Dad only gave me $20 to buy you clothes today." When Xinhuan heard I said 20 yuan, he was shocked. How could it be only 20 yuan? The store clerk laughed so hard she was shaking, and played along with me. "This is hilarious. Sophia only has 20 yuan on her, and she's trying to shop at a luxury store with David. This store clerk was the one I had messaged earlier at the cafe to help me out. Every time I came shopping, she was the one who served me, so we had become pretty familiar with each other. David, are you dissatisfied with $20? But what can I do? You're not even worth $20. Xinhuan was at a loss for words, his face flushing red with anger. I'm not. Momo, I didn't mean it that way. David, let's not buy it anymore. After leaving the mall, Xinhuan thought I was angry and didn't come over, but I heard him mutter, how could this happen? Before, you were always eager to pay for me. Do you not like me anymore? Just wait until I make you beg me like last time. I didn't expect Xinhuan to have reborn, still as self-absorbed as ever. Just wait and see who laughs last. In the afternoon, Dad dropped Xinhuan off at the rural public school, but I didn't expect him to be waiting for me at the school gate after school. Looking at his body, which had no intact wounds, and the fleeting look of calculation and cruelty on his face, an ominous premonition swept over me. He smiled nonchalantly. Sophia, why are you so surprised to see David here? You forgot that we used to be in the same bed, didn't you? I pretended not to know, feigning calmness and confusion. David, what did you just say? I didn't hear you. Looking at his wounds, I feigned shock and disbelief. How did you get hurt? Dad said you were so strong, that 10 people couldn't beat you. So Dad was lying? You can get hurt too? To make it more convincing, I deliberately let a few tears fall, looking very upset. Does it hurt? David. Xinhuan probably didn't expect me to pull this stunt. After staring at me for half a second, he might have noticed that my expression didn't seem fake. He also recalled how I had initially rejected him when he first came to our house, so he paused for a moment. It's okay, it doesn't hurt anymore. Sorry, David, I was just in pain and said some nonsense. Do you still hate me now? Huh? I pretended not to understand his words. David, how could I hate you? If I really hated you, I wouldn't have sent you to a regular middle school. I did this all for your own good. The best response at this moment was to act dumb, ask questions, and keep him guessing. Sure enough, after hearing my response, Xinhuan immediately showed some surprise and astonishment. You sent me to a rural middle school, for my sake? Yes, David. I affirmed, I did it all to protect your self-esteem. You don't know how competitive our school is, everyone there is so calculating. They'd definitely question your background, and that wouldn't be good for you, right? To my surprise, Xinhuan suddenly grabbed my wrist, his expression filled with pain as he pleaded, Sophia, it's okay. As long as I can study at the same school as you and be closer to you, David doesn't care what others say. David just wants to protect you. I forced myself to suppress my physical disgust and continued to engage him. David, you really don't care what others say and want to be at the same school as me? Only I knew that if it weren't for the other hand tightly clenching my palm, I might have lost my temper. Xinhuan hurriedly nodded in affirmation. Sophia, David just wants to be by your side to protect you and take care of you. What others think doesn't matter to me. But I feigned reluctance. David, you don't know, our family's circumstances aren't the same as before. The tuition for this prep school is a bit high. How could that be? I heard Xinhuan whisper, is there really no way? I pretended to think for a moment. There is a way, but... But what? Xinhuan immediately pressed. I hesitated for a moment. Unless you can do something to make Dad happier, he'll find a way to grant your wish out of gratitude, even if he has to borrow money. Oh. I'll think of something else. Xinhuan immediately lost his enthusiasm, but the determination in his eyes remained unchanged. By evening, Xinhuan said he didn't feel comfortable letting me go home alone and wanted to walk me home. I was afraid he'd cause trouble again, so I agreed. Along the way, I pretended to ask if he wanted to go to the hospital to check his injury, but he shook his head and said it wasn't necessary. Only I knew he was using his injury to try to gain Dad's sympathy, but Dad would never agree so easily. He might soften his heart, but he respected my opinion more. In Dad's eyes, no one's affairs could be handled without consulting his daughter. After my brainwashing over the past period, he wasn't as easily swayed anymore. When we got home that evening, Dad saw the injuries on Xinhuan's body and looked worried. Wan, how did you get so injured just going to school? Did you get bullied at school? Xinhuan pretended to be strong. It's nothing, uncle. I'm not in pain. It's just, they all bullied me because I don't have a father, so I ran back home. Dad was filled with righteous indignation. Nonsense. You still have us family. Wait, uncle will go to your school in a few days and let them know you have backing. Xinhuan looked delighted. Tomorrow is parent-teacher conference. Can you be my dad? Dad glanced at me without giving anything away. Well, I'm afraid that's not possible. Uncle is currently involved in an investment, and everyone knows that Momo only has one David. If word gets out about another one, it might not look good. Xinhuan didn't mention it again. After dinner, Dad told him to stay and rest, and they'd go to school tomorrow. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt uneasy. Xinhuan had already reborn. He was no longer the naive, innocent teenager he once was. He was now a mature man with the mindset and strategies of an adult. I dared not take him lightly. I recalled how he had tested me today at my school to see if I had also reborn. Although I had managed to deceive him, I wasn't sure if he truly believed me. To be on the safe side, I decided to check the surveillance footage again. This surveillance system had been installed by a professional while Xinhuan was away at the rural middle school. Sure enough, as soon as I connected the computer and opened the video feed, I heard Xinhuan speaking to someone else. I never thought she'd come back to life and still be so stupid and gullible. She really thinks I'd believe her lies. Her entire family is utterly foolish, thinking they're saviors. What they owe me, they couldn't repay even if they paid 10 times over. I didn't know where Xinhuan's hatred for my family came from, and I never imagined his hatred for my family was so deep. It was he who owed me, yet even after being reborn, he showed no remorse and still wanted to try the same tricks again. But how could I possibly give him what he wanted? Xinhuan was holding a phone in his hand, and I couldn't imagine where he had gotten the money to buy it. But I noticed a familiar voice coming from the phone. Big brother, what are you talking about, Reborn? I don't understand. My task is to find a few brothers in a few days and ambush her near the school. When she comes out, we'll pretend to assault her, and you'll come out to save her, right? I will never forget that voice. It was one of the thugs who had stopped me on the way home from school that night. So Xinhuan was their boss, and everything had been planned by him all along. Perhaps at this time in a previous life, he had already plotted this before entering our home. How long had he been planning for this day? I dared not imagine. In the surveillance footage, Xinhuan hung up the phone and smiled maliciously at the mirror. Humph, the thing that makes your father happy isn't just me saving you like a hero and winning your heart, making your father grateful to me, is it? Momo, even in another life, you still know how to surprise me. I'll have to thank you properly someday. This time, I'll treat you well and never let you be bullied like before. Though I hate your family, I think I might be starting to like you a little. I watched the surveillance video, trembling with anger, but I forced myself to stay calm, suppressing my sobs, wiping away the tears of regret, and then saved the surveillance video of Xinhuan trying to harm me, making an additional backup and hiding it. The next morning, after Xinhuan left, I had Dad hire several bodyguards at a high price to secretly protect me on my way home from school. At the same time, I hired an assistant from a company to secretly help film videos. All of this would become evidence to bring Xinhuan down. In my previous life, it was my negligence that led our family into Xinhuan's trap, leading us step by step into a situation with no way out. And Lucas. This time, I must protect him at all costs. In my previous life, I met Lucas too late. At the time, I didn't know he was Uncle Chu's son. We met when we were children, but we didn't see each other again for many years. The only time we met again was after our family was bankrupted by Xinhuan. All the investors had been warned by him and dared not help us. Xinhuan's goal was to make me beg him for help. He knew that Dad had gone gray with worry over the company. Precisely because it was the business Dad had built with so much effort, Xinhuan knew that I would eventually have to beg him. He wanted me to become his mistress, begging for his mercy. So, in front of all the high-ranking figures in the industry, he stripped away the last shred of my dignity. At my lowest, most helpless moment, I met Lucas, who came to my rescue. He said he could help me without asking for anything in return. Later, without my knowledge, Xinhuan used my safety to deceive him, causing Lucas to be involved in a car accident. The only person who was kind to me, aside from my family, died that winter. And the mastermind behind it all now lives a life of adoration. In this lifetime, I will make Shenwan pay for his actions. Since learning of Shenwan's plan to harm me, I've been extra cautious every night after school. I've made all necessary preparations. I never expected Shenwan's plan to come so quickly. That evening, as I left the school gate, I sensed someone following me. I took out my phone and opened the front-facing camera, just in time to see a man with dyed yellow hair. He was the same man who had led the group to assault me in my previous life. They were all under Shenwan's command. The show was finally about to begin. I sneered inwardly and sent messages to the people I had arranged to watch over me, instructing them to follow my orders. Once everything was in place, I tucked my phone into a hidden corner of my backpack and started recording. At the same time, I took the same route I had taken in my previous life. Just as I reached the middle of the alley, those men suddenly emerged from the darkness. The small knives and sticks in their hands glinted menacingly under the white streetlights. The leader, with several scars on his face, spoke harshly to me. "Beautiful lady, we're broke. Give us some money to get by." He toyed with the knife in his hand, his expression fierce, teasing, "If you can't, just satisfy us, and maybe we'll let you go." His henchmen laughed and began unbuttoning their shirts. "Haha, that's right, you're so pretty, I wonder how you are in bed?" Even after many years, seeing this scene again still sends shivers down my spine. "How much do you want?" I suppressed the nausea in my stomach and spoke calmly. Those men changed their minds as before, grinning. "What money?" "Sophia, we don't need your money. But we're short on something else. It depends on whether you're willing to give it." "Get out of here," I screamed, pretending to be afraid, taking steps backward. Unlike in my previous life, last time I had fallen to the ground because I was running too frantically. This time, I deliberately tripped over a stone on the ground, aiming to wait for Shenwan, who had been hiding in the shadows, to appear. Those men grew arrogant. "Oh, Sophia, how clumsy of you. Come on, David, help her up. Don't touch her." Before they could finish speaking, Shenwan suddenly appeared and interrupted them. "Get your dirty hands off her. I've already called the police." "Call the police?" "Humph." I sneered. In my previous life, if Shenwan had really called the police, I wouldn't have been beaten so badly that I ended up in the hospital. This was the closest place to the police station. If he really called the police, someone would arrive in less than 10 minutes. If it weren't for the events of my previous life and my knowledge of Shenwan's plan, I never would have guessed that everything was orchestrated by him. I also never would have thought that these people would dare to ambush me here. Because they knew Shenwan wouldn't really call the police. He had already planned his escape route. When I got into trouble, he would suddenly appear, willing to be beaten into a critical condition and hospitalized for a month, rather than call the police. All of this was to carry out his perfect self-sacrifice scheme, aiming to improve our relationship. It would also make Dad feel grateful, allowing him to enroll me in prep school under a new identity. Then he could treat me like his own son, bringing me into high society to build his own network and connections. Hey, another fool who isn't afraid to die, trying to be a hero and save the damsel in distress? The few people who saw Shenwan appear grew even more excited. "You're asking for death," Shenwan shouted angrily. The leader, a man with yellow hair, swung his stick at Shenwan, hitting him on the leg. Only I knew they were pretending. In my previous life, I was too panicked to notice, but this time I observed everything carefully. Those people were deliberately avoiding Shenwan's vital areas and holding back their strength as they struck. Shenwan pretended to be in great pain and looked at me anxiously. "Sophia, run." Seeing that I didn't move, Shenwan began to shout, "Go." I didn't run. I remained calm and looked at him. "David, don't worry. I've already called the police. They'll be here soon." Sure enough, the people who were fighting froze. "Who told you to call the police?" Shenwan demanded of me first. I pretended not to understand and said deliberately, "What's wrong, David? You didn't want me to call the police and just watch them hurt you?" "That's not what I meant." Shenwan tried to explain, but the others turned on him. "Shenwan, you said you wouldn't let anyone call the police, just scare her a little. You betrayed us?" "I didn't." Shenwan shouted angrily. "I didn't tell her to call the police. Then, as if suddenly realizing something, he looked at me. You knew all along, didn't you? You were just putting on a show for me. I laughed. What's wrong, David? Isn't this what you taught me? Turnabout is fair play. Are you satisfied with this outcome? I asked him. Xiao Mo. Xinhuan's eyes were filled with anger, as if he wanted to tear me apart. When did you find out? Does it matter? I asked casually. All you need to know is that your retribution has come. Is that so? Xinhuan laughed angrily, and a spring knife suddenly appeared in his hand. He took advantage of my guard being down and slashed my arm. Does it hurt? He asked me. Actually, I hadn't even thought about dodging. Guess? I smiled triumphantly. David, today is your coming-of-age day, isn't it? Before he could inflict further harm, I grabbed his arm to stop him and spoke those words. Xinhuan seemed to realize something. You're betraying me? Xiao Mo. The sound of police sirens grew louder in the distance, and Xinhuan grew increasingly panicked. His fingers trembled as he held the knife, pointing it directly at my heart. He laughed coldly. Then let's die together. But I don't want to. Taking advantage of his distraction, I gripped Xinhuan's wrist tightly and kicked him in his sensitive lower body. Xinhuan was instantly incapacitated by the pain, focusing only on covering the injured area. His so-called brothers had already fled upon hearing the sirens. If I hadn't made a mistake, they should have been caught by my men on the way. Not a single one escaped. Xinhuan winced in pain. Xiao Mo, you. I smiled indifferently. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thanks to what you taught me in my previous life. As the sirens blared, Xinhuan's hands were cuffed with cold handcuffs. After he was sent to prison, I went to visit him, not for any other reason than to mock him. But this man showed no remorse. Xiao Mo, do you think you've won? He sneered. There are no cameras there. Do you really think you've got this one? In a few days, I'll be out. Where does he get his confidence? A lawless outlaw? Is that so? You forgot? I casually waved my phone at him. A phone is a handy little thing, isn't it? Everything that happened that night was recorded. I added, oh, and by the way, you didn't know, but there's a camera in your room too. Xinhuan flew into a rage. Xiao Mo, you. What you? Don't keep calling me that. It's late at night, I'll have nightmares. Don't worry, your skinny body isn't worth my attention. In my previous life, you were already disgusting enough. In this life, that thing probably doesn't even work anymore, does it? Also, I saved the video of you plotting with someone to kill me at night as evidence. This time, you'll rot in prison and repent for your sins. As I left, Xinhuan told me a secret. Xiao Mo, do you know why I hate you and your family so much? Without Dad's help, the one sitting in your father's position would be Dad, and the one going to prep school would be me. I, of course, already knew. Keep your secret buried deep inside you for the rest of your life. It was nothing more than a deep brotherly bond that had turned into mutual suspicion and jealousy. Xinhuan's thoughts were nothing but the ramblings of a fool. Before coming here to meet Xinhuan, I had already told Dad everything. Including how Xinhuan had people target me and his further plans, everything. Dad was heartbroken when he heard it. He never imagined Xinhuan would do such a thing to me. He sighed deeply and told me about that long-buried past. Back then, when he was working hard to make a living, his business wasn't as big as it is now. He happened to meet Xinhuan's father. At first, they had a lot in common, and Dad thought about bringing Xinhuan's father into a business venture to share the profits. However, Xinhuan's father had many reservations at the time and ultimately declined to participate. That business venture was a great success for Dad. Step by step, he built a solid foundation in Cloudville. After that, Xinhuan's father suddenly distanced himself from Dad, and their friendship gradually faded. Years later, when Xinhuan's father fell seriously ill, he finally called Dad for the last time, hoping for his help to support Xinhuan until he came of age. Out of consideration for their past friendship, Dad agreed, unaware that this was the true beginning of their plan. Xinhuan's father had calculated that Dad would honor their former friendship and help take care of Xinhuan. I wonder what kind of ideas Xinhuan's father instilled in him. From Xinhuan's behavior, it was clear he had already decided to take my place before he even entered our home. He thought that by reincarnating, he could easily take my place, but he forgot that I had also been reincarnated. Epilogue. After everything settled, I began my normal studies and life. Just like in my previous life, this time around, I didn't get the chance to meet Lucas. He went abroad. Perhaps our meeting was destined to be delayed. Perhaps we were meant to be together but not meant to be. But no matter how long it takes, this time I want to try waiting for someone.